I remember when I was like 8 years old, I was visiting a friend from primary school, and we were having a blast. We were asking very profound questions that adults don't get, but children get that. So we were sitting in a room together, and we were trying to imagine nothing. And, we couldn't stop laughing. And we couldn't stop laughing because every time we tried to imagine nothing, we saw either a black eternity or a white eternity. But we couldn't imagine nothing would come out as black or white. And then I think 2 years ago, I had an answer about that a little bit. Well, first of all, what I heard in spirit was simply that our human brains cannot imagine nothing. So every time we ask a question, it will try to come up with something because it cannot imagine nothing. It's incapable of doing that. But there is such a thing as the childhood memory of God. Now we got to be very, very careful because that implies time. And time doesn't really exist in source directly in the way that we understand it. But what I saw was fascinating because it made perfect sense. And then you understand the statement as above, so below. So what I saw was a black void where there were no borders, no sense of time, and no way of having a mirror image. So we couldn't see ourselves, but we were very curious about that. So we started to do something that children do in the kindergarten. So when children are in the kindergarten, they start stacking blocks, for example. They're building little houses and towers and they tear them down, right? This is exactly what God did in the beginning. So we were creating very primitive molecules or very primitive atoms, much less advanced than what we experience now. And we would create objects within ourselves because we had no borders, we had no attributes, so we couldn't look at ourselves. We just knew that we were, that's all. So we used then our abilities at the beginning of creation. We built this very primitive building blocks. So we would look at objects, and through the object, we would become aware of being unlimited because the object had limitation. So it became a mirroring device. We realized, oh, if we start creating geometry, and we did this very basic in the beginning, we were creating spheres, squares, pyramids. We create them in the void by just dreaming up atoms. So we're doing this and we're looking at these objects and we're tearing them down. And then we're building new ones. And we're tearing them down and we're building new ones. Exactly like a little toddler in the kindergarten. And by creating these objects and by seeing that they had attributes, that they had limitations in space, for example, we realized what we were because we didn't have limitations in space. So we used the object as a device of becoming self-aware. Now, guess what the human is? The human is a much more evolved version of that. So why do the Buddhists say, be glad when you have a human body, because in a human body you can attain enlightenment? It is because by saying we are not the ego, by meditating on the human experience, by detaching from the human experience, we realize we are not in the human is in us. Then that's beginning to remember who we are. The human is a limited perspective within space-time, as were these very basic objects that we built in the beginning. And by building objects, we created dimensions. So the whole universe is a mirroring device for God to become self-aware. But awareness we realize in the contrast to objects, because awareness is not limited, but objects are. So when we look at objects, we begin realizing, oh, we are not those objects, we're not those dimensions, because we watch them, so we can't be in them. So simple, if you watch a TV show, are you in the TV show or not? Right? So there is something in you that is aware there is a dimension that is a TV show, and I'm outside of it and I'm the witness. Well, in the same way, when you meditate, the human will appear like that at some point. You will become a witness to the human will appear unreal, and this is when you understand. So by creating something, nothing is understood, because nothing cannot be observed directly, cannot be known directly, can only be known indirectly. By creating something other than nothing. And that is why enlightenment is possible in the human, because the human is something. So when you believe to be something, you believe that for long enough until you wake up and you realize, oh, I'm not that something, I am nothing. You only know that you're nothing because you look at something as the contrast to the nothingness. So this whole universe and many other universes are ultimately designed to create alternative realities, infinite alternative realities, so that God, when God creates the illusion of separation within himself or itself, that when that sense of separation is slowly being dissolved through the illusion of time, we return to God from a unique perspective. And this is like painting an image of God. So if you see yourself in a mirror and you wanted someone to paint a portrait of yours in order to have a sense of self, right? That is basically what the universe is. The universe is a gigantic portrait painting mechanism. Since we cannot know ourselves directly, we can only know ourselves indirectly. And the way to gathering that information is taking on so many infinite, unique perspectives that whatever is ultimate will be discerned through those unique perspectives. Because what is ultimate will not have variation, even though there's variation of perspective. So if I want to be funny, I would say the whole universe is beating around the bush. Yeah, since we cannot see ourselves directly, we try to recognize ourselves by creating illusion or dream states as not the dream. That's why all the great masters and saints, they have always spoken about God in terms of negativity, about what God is not, but they couldn't say what God is. Because in order to know God, you need to withdraw your senses from the objects. You basically need to deconstruct all of reality as an experiment in meditation. Yeah, deconstruct the thoughts, the emotions, the psychology, the human, the physical world, deconstruct it all and see what remains.